In some previous videos, we looked at AutoSum and how to create a simple formula for what we're looking at doing. However, AutoSum doesn't always do what we need to do. It's pretty good and does a lot of stuff we need, but there are times that we need to be able to enter in a formula of our own kind. So let's take a look at some examples of this. We have some items that were for sale in a retail type of store. We have our cost and we have a sale price. We also have how many are currently in stock and how many we sold last quarter. Based upon that, we can gather a lot of information, including what the total retail value is. That's the amount of items that are all in our store and what that cost is to us. The profit margin for each item sold. How much profit we made off of a given item, and the percentage of the total retail value that this particular item is making up. So let's take a quick look at this real quick. Now this is once again only a subset of information. If I was a typical retail type of store, I could potentially have hundreds of items that are sold, even in something as specialized as an exercise company. So just keep that in mind when we look at some of these examples. All right, so I have my total retail value, and that's how much all my items would be if they were all sold. So I'm going to take my quantity in stock and multiply it times my sale price. Now, I could go into a calculator and do this, but then I'm losing out on the functionality of Excel. So I want to create a custom formula for this. And for something small like this, I can actually just enter it directly in my cell. So I'm going to double click, so I go to enter into my cell. I'm going to use the equal sign, because anytime I'm going to start with a formula, I have to use the equal sign. Then I'm going to choose the sale price column, and times, which is going to be shift 8, it's a little asterisk, or you might call it a star, times the quantity in stock. When I hit enter, this is going to give me the retail value of all the elliptical items in stock right now. Now, if I want to know what the profit margin is per item being sold, well, that's another simple formula. I just need to subtract two values. So I'm going to double click inside my cell. Then I'm going to select my sale price. Now, when I do that, you might notice in the cell that I double clicked in, it says C4. That says pull my information from this cell. Excel is always about pulling information from other cells. That way, if we update the sale price or we update the quantity or anything else, we're going to get up-to-date information. Now, in my case, I want to subtract the sale price minus the cost. So I'll click on my appropriate cell, which is B4, and you'll see my formula now says C4 minus B4. When I hit the enter key, it goes and runs that calculation. And basically for every item, it's assuming we'll make approximately $141. Now, if I want to know what the profit was for last quarter, there's two ways I can do this. I can sell the amount sold last quarter, which in this case is 15, and then multiply it by my profit margin. And that's one way I could do it. I could also write out my full formula and say 15 times, and then put in parentheses the sale price minus my cost. So I have a lot of flexibility. Because Excel is very flexible, both will actually get us the same answer. So I'm just going to put equals a profit margin times, and then the sold last quarter. So I'm G4 times E4 in this case. Now, in this case, I can't see what that number is. It's too small. I'm going to increase it just a little bit. You'll see we made about $2,000 profit. Now, I'm going to select all my cells with my formulas because these formulas need to be repeated. And as we saw before, I can click and drag, or I can double click on the little box and will automatically fill in all this information for me. Now, you'll notice that it gets a little confused because I have here a total section, and that's not some data that it can work with. So we do have to be careful when we use some of these autofill tools. I'm just going to select this last row of unnecessary information, delete it, and expand my one column so I see all my numbers. Now, if I want to know my total retail value, I'm going to use the auto sum. Notice it's smart enough and it gives me a little quick view when I say auto sum. It's going and figuring that out for me. We can say sum and specify a series of numbers, or we can use a colon to do a range in our cells. Excel already did this for me. I don't have to worry about it. So I'm just going to leave it as is for that and click enter. And this gives me my total amount. Now, if I want to find my total retail amount, this is going to be pretty easy as well. This is going to give me a percentage. And so I'm going to say equals, choose the total retail value, divided by, and then the total amount. Now, it shows 0.1195. That's not the percentage we're expecting. So I'm going to come and select my cell, come up to my number section, and choose percent style, and it's going to give me a percentage style. I can go and add additional zeros, and that way it will round information for me or give me more detailed precision, in which case if I click that twice, it now shows 11.95%. This is now formatted in a much friendlier, easier way. Now you might think, well, hey, I just need to click and drag this down, just like I did before. However, you'll notice I'm getting some divide by zero errors. That's what the hash mark div/0 is. It's dividing by zero. And if I click inside this, you'll notice I have F5, and I can see where F5 is. And then it tries to do F10. And F10 is not a cell with any data. If I click next one down, it's F6 and F11. The problem with this is we need to always use the exact same number to divide by. That is, whatever data is inside this calculated cell, F9. So I'm going to make a real quick modification to this. I'm going to put my mouse cursor inside of my cell, and I'm going to come up to my formula bar, just because it's a little bit easier for me to type in, and I'm going to put a $ in front of the 9. Now you might say, well, what does that do? And if I hit enter, you'll notice that my data doesn't change. Well, what it's going to do is now when I click and drag, now my data works. And you might be going, well, how come putting a $ did that? The first cell is changing. So I say F4, F5, F6, etc. However, that total value, where I get that information from, that stays the same. The $ put in there means to lock that value so we always use that row's information. Now, we're not trying to divide by a value that doesn't exist. We always use that same information to divide by, and I can see how this information relates. So this is just a real quick way that I can do some formulas. I can use the autofill feature, and I can lock a specific cell in to make sure that I don't ruin a formula by having it adjust when it shouldn't.